The call from my mother came just as I was finishing hanging Grandma Etta's quilts on the clothesline. Her timing was always impeccable that way, disrupting the small moments of peace I managed to carve out for myself. "Lila, darling, I need you to do something for me." Her voice carried that familiar saccharine tone that always preceded bad news. I pinned the last corner of the quilt, watching it dance in the autumn breeze. "I'm kind of busy, Mom. This is important. Sarah needs a place to stay." The wooden clothespin snapped in my hand. Sarah, my half-sister, the golden child, the one who'd never had to work for anything in her life.
No.
"It's not a request, dear. She'll be there tomorrow." I pressed my fingers against the bridge of my nose. "You can't just." "Actually, I can." Her voice hardened. "Need I remind you that your grandmother's house isn't legally yours yet? The trust doesn't transfer until you're 30. The quilts suddenly felt like they were closing in around me, their familiar patterns morphing into prison bars. "You wouldn't." "Of course not, darling. But Sarah needs guidance, and you're so stable." She made it sound like a disease. "Besides, that house is far too big for just one person." I looked up at Grandma Etta's Victorian home, with its worn blue shutters and wraparound porch. Every creaking floorboard and chipped tile held a memory. "This is my home." "Then be a good sister and share it. Sarah will arrive tomorrow afternoon. Do make her feel welcome." The line went dead before I could protest further. I stood there, surrounded by billowing quilts, my phone clutched so tight my knuckles turned white. Inside, I paced the kitchen, my grandmother's domain where she taught me everything from baking to standing my ground. The copper pots still hung exactly where she'd left them, catching the sunlight that streamed through the bay window. My neighbor Iris's voice drifted through the screen door. "Those quilts sure look pretty dancing in the wind." I opened the door to find her on the porch, a plate of cookies in hand. One look at my face, and her smile faded. "Mari called," I said, accepting the plate.
"Ah."
Iris settled into one of the rocking chairs. "And what does Her Majesty want this time?" "She's sending Sarah to live with me. Tomorrow." Iris's rocker stopped mid-motion. "The same Sarah who threw a fit at your grandmother's funeral because the catering wasn't up to her standards?" "The very same." I sank into the other chair, offering her a cookie. "Mom's using the trust as leverage. If I don't take her in, she'll contest the house," Iris finished, her eyes narrowing. "That woman never did fight fair." A text buzzed on my phone. From Sarah. "Can't wait to give that dusty old place a makeover."
指甲油亮光闪烁。
My stomach clenched. I showed Iris the message. "Well," she said, brushing cookie crumbs from her lap, "looks like you've got some decisions to make, honey. The question is, are you going to let them walk all over Etta's legacy, or are you going to show them what that old bird really taught you?" I watched the quilts ripple in the wind, thinking of all the stories Grandma Etta had stitched into them. Stories of resilience, of standing firm when the world tried to push you down. "They have no idea what they're walking into," I said quietly, and for the first time since the phone call, I smiled. Iris patted my hand. "That's the spirit. Now let's talk strategy." Sarah's arrival brought chaos with it, literally. 3 designer suitcases spilled across Grandma Etta's hand-woven rugs, and the sound of stilettos clicked against the hardwood floors like tiny hammers against my skull. "This place is so quaint," Sarah said, wrinkling her nose at the vintage wallpaper. "Mom said it needed work, but I didn't realize how much." I bit my tongue, remembering Iris's advice about picking my battles. "Your room is upstairs, second door on the right. The one with the hideous floral curtains?" She pulled out her phone, scrolling rapidly. "I already ordered new ones, along with some other necessities. You can't just..." "Oh, and the moving truck will be here tomorrow with my furniture." My hands clenched involuntarily. "There's already furniture in that room." Sarah glanced up, her perfectly manicured eyebrows arching. "That ancient stuff? I had it moved to the attic this morning. The movers came while you were at work." The room spun slightly. I steadied myself against the banister, feeling the smooth wood Grandma Etta had polished countless times. "You went into my house while I was gone?" "Mom gave me a key." She shrugged, as if this explained everything. Don't worry, I supervised them. Nothing valuable was damaged. Well, except for that old mirror, but honestly, it was already cracked. My throat tightened. Which mirror? The ugly gold one. It's fine though. I ordered a modern replacement that'll really open up the space. Grandma Etta's vanity mirror. The one she'd rescued from a fire in her childhood home. The one she'd restored by hand. I took 3 deep breaths, just like Iris taught me. Show me. Sarah rolled her eyes, but led me upstairs. The room, my mother's old room, was stripped bare. The antique dresser, the hand-carved bed frame, the reading nook cushions Grandma had embroidered, all gone. In their place stood sleek, modern furniture still wrapped in plastic.
See?
So much better already. Sarah bounced on the mattress that had replaced Grandma's 4-poster bed. Though these floors really need updating. I'm thinking hardwood. Stop. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Where's the mirror? Attic. Though honestly, you should just let me. I was already moving, climbing the narrow stairs to the attic. The space was chaos. Furniture piled haphazardly, boxes stacked without care. And there, propped against a trunk, was Grandma's mirror. A jagged crack split its surface from corner to corner. Something inside me cracked too. I descended to find Sarah on her phone again. The contractors can start next week. Mom's covering it, of course. She agrees this place needs. Get out. She looked up, startled. Excuse me? Get out of this room. Now. You can't be serious. Mom said. I don't care what Mom said. This is my house and you, my voice caught. You don't get to erase her. Erase who? That old furniture? Please, I'm doing you a favor. This place is stuck in the last century. I stepped closer, feeling something shift inside me, something cold and determined. You have 2 choices. Either you move everything back exactly as it was, or you can explain to Mom why you're sleeping in a hotel. You wouldn't dare. The trust. Try me. Our eyes locked. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across her perfect features. Fine, she huffed. I'll cancel the contractors. But I'm not moving all that heavy stuff myself. No, I said, already pulling out my phone. You're going to help me move every single piece back. And then we're going to have a long talk about boundaries. She opened her mouth to argue, but something in my expression made her stop. Good. Let her see what she was really dealing with. Because this wasn't just about furniture or a broken mirror. This was war, and I'd learned from the best how to fight without drawing blood. Grandma Etta would be proud. The letter from Berkeley University fell from Sarah's purse while I was cleaning up another of her breakfast messes. I shouldn't have read it, but after a week of her entitled behavior, my sympathy had worn paper thin. Academic dismissal. Not just poor grades, plagiarism. The front door slammed, and I quickly shoved the letter back into her purse. Sarah stormed in. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Mom's not answering my calls, she spat, throwing her phone onto the counter. Again. I watched her grab Grandma's crystal tumbler and fill it with vodka. At 2 in the afternoon. Rough day. Like you care. She knocked back the drink. You're probably loving this, aren't you? Perfect Lila, with her perfect little life in this perfect little museum. My life's far from perfect. I moved the vodka bottle out of reach. But at least I'm honest about it. Her head snapped up. What's that supposed to mean? I met her gaze steadily. Does Mom know why you really left college? The color drained from her face. For a moment, I saw past the designer clothes and practiced sneer to something raw and frightened. Then the mask slipped back into place. You went through my things? She grabbed her purse, clutching it like a shield. You had no right. Like you had no right to move Grandma's furniture? Or break her mirror? That's different, Mom said. Mom's not here. I stepped closer. It's just us, Sarah. No audience, no one to perform for. Why don't you tell me what really happened? She hurled the crystal tumbler against the wall. It shattered, sending prisms of light dancing across the kitchen. You want the truth?
Fine.
I couldn't hack it, okay? I couldn't be what everyone expected. Perfect grades, perfect social life, perfect everything. So I took some shortcuts. By stealing someone else's work? I was drowning. Her voice cracked. Do you know what it's like living in your shadow? Why can't you be more like your sister? Why can't you get it together like Lila? Even when Mom sent me here, it was because you're the responsible one. I almost laughed. You think I'm the favorite? Mom barely acknowledges my existence unless she wants something. At least she had expectations for you. Me? Sarah slumped against the counter. I'm just the mistake she made with her second husband. The kitchen fell silent except for the tick of Grandma's old clock. I looked at the shattered crystal, thinking of all the things we'd broken between us. Help me clean this up, I said finally. She blinked. What? The glass. Help me clean it up, and then we can talk. Really talk. For a moment, I thought she'd refuse. Then she grabbed the broom I held out. As we swept up the broken pieces, I noticed her hands trembling. You know, I said carefully, Grandma used to say that sometimes things need to break before they can be fixed properly. Sarah paused, a dustpan full of crystal shards in her hands. Is that why you hate me? Because I'm breaking things. I don't hate you, Sarah. I hate what you're doing to this house, to Grandma's memory. She dumped the glass into the trash. I needed to change something, to feel like I had control over something. I thought of the letter in her purse, of all the pressure she must have faced. There are better ways to take control. She looked around the kitchen, at the space she'd been trying so hard to erase. Will you show me? It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. And maybe, just maybe, there was something worth salvaging here, if we could both let go of our weapons long enough to try. First, I said, let me tell you about the woman who built this house with her own 2 hands. The bass from Sarah's impromptu party rattled Grandma's china cabinet, each vibration threatening to topple the delicate teacups inside. I'd returned from my late shift to find our tentative peace shattered along with my hopes of progress. It's just a few friends, Sarah had said earlier when I caught her setting up. Now, at midnight, a few friends had multiplied into dozens of strangers sprawled across every surface of our home. Someone stumbled into Grandma's reading chair, sloshing red wine onto the hand-stitched cushions. Another group was using her antique coffee table for beer pong. I found Sarah in the kitchen, perched on the counter where Grandma had taught me to roll pie crust, surrounded by admirers. Oh my God, you should have seen her face when I redecorated, she was saying. Like I'd committed murder or something. It's just furniture. The room fell silent as I stepped in. Sarah's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before brightening artificially. Lila, you're home early. This needs to end.
Now.
Don't be such a buzzkill. She hopped down, swaying slightly. We're celebrating. Celebrating what? Mom called. She's giving me access to my trust fund early. No more slumming it here. She gestured grandly, nearly knocking over a bottle. I'm moving out next week. The news should have brought relief. Instead, it felt like a punch to the gut. When were you planning to tell me? I just did. She turned to her audience. See what I mean? So dramatic. A crash from the living room made me flinch. Sarah rolled her eyes. Relax, I'll replace whatever it is. Like you replaced Grandma's mirror? Her friends exchanged glances, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Sarah waved them away. Give us a minute, guys. Once we were alone, her facade cracked slightly. Look, I know I messed up with the mirror, but this isn't about the mirror. I grabbed a stranger's hands as they reached for Grandma's prized copper pots. This is about respect. For this house, for me, for yourself. Oh, please. You're not my mother. No, I'm not. I'm the person who's been trying to help you. She laughed, harsh and brittle. Help me? By what? Lecturing me about your precious grandmother. Judging everything I do? Some sister you are. Sister? I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Sisters don't use each other. They don't destroy what matters most to each other for entertainment. Something flickered in her eyes, guilt, maybe, or fear. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression hardened. Mom says hi, she said sweetly. She also mentioned something interesting about the trust conditions for the house. Apparently, if the property isn't properly maintained. The threat hung in the air between us. Through the doorway, I could see more people arriving, bringing chaos with them. So here's the deal, Sarah continued. The party stays. And if you try to stop it. She shrugged. Well, I'm sure Mom would love to hear about all the damage happening to her investment. In that moment, I saw our mother in her, the same calculated manipulation, the same casual cruelty. But I also saw something else, desperation. The kind that comes from never feeling good enough. I thought of the college dismissal letter, of her earlier vulnerability, of all the ways fear can make us cruel. Okay, I said quietly. She blinked, thrown off balance. Okay, the party can stay. But first, let me show you something in the attic. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's forcing someone to face the truth about themselves. And I knew exactly which box of family photos would do just that. Sarah followed me upstairs, unaware she was walking into a different kind of confrontation altogether. The old photo albums lay scattered across the attic floor, their pages spread like broken wings. Sarah sat cross-legged among them, her party forgotten downstairs as she stared at a photograph of our mother, young, carefree, holding a baby that wasn't her. She looks happy, Sarah whispered, tracing Mom's smile with a fingertip. I've never seen her look at me like that. I pulled another album from the trunk. Keep looking. The music thumped below us, but up here time seemed suspended between heartbeats. Sarah flipped through more pages, her perfectly manicured nails trembling slightly. When did she change? She didn't. I handed her the second album. This is from after she left. The contrast was stark. Mom in designer suits, her smile practiced, professional. A succession of photos showing her achievements, her new life, her new family. Sarah appeared in these, always perfectly dressed, always slightly apart. I don't understand, Sarah said. Why show me this? Because you're not the first person she's abandoned. I reached for Grandma's jewelry box, pulled out a folded letter. Or the last one she'll try to control. The letter was dated 3 months ago. Mom's elegant handwriting detailed her plans for modernizing the house once she gained control. Plans that had nothing to do with preservation and everything to do with profit. Sarah's face paled as she read. The trust fund, she never intended to give it to me, did she? She needed you to create enough chaos that she'd have reason to intervene. The words tasted bitter. I'm just sorry I didn't see it sooner. A crash from downstairs made us both jump. Sarah's phone buzzed, Mom's name lighting up the screen. She stared at it, then deliberately pressed ignore. All this time, she said quietly, I thought if I just tried harder, proved myself. Her laugh was hollow. God, I'm such an idiot. You're not an idiot. You're her daughter. I closed the album gently. We both are. That's why she knows exactly how to play us against each other. Sarah stood abruptly, swaying slightly. I have to stop the party. We both know it's too late for that. Then what do we do? For the first time since she arrived, she looked her age, young, scared, lost. I thought of Grandma Etta, of all her lessons about standing your ground, about choosing your battles wisely. We give her exactly what she wants. What? The chaos she's expecting. Just not quite the way she planned it. I pulled out my phone. But first, we need to make a few calls. Sarah's eyes widened as I dialed. Who are you calling? Iris. And then a lawyer I know. I met her gaze steadily. The question is, are you with me? Really with me? She looked down at the photos again, at the mother who had shaped us both through absence and manipulation. Then she straightened her shoulders, something of Grandma's steel showing through. What do you need me to do? First, we're going to document everything downstairs. Every bit of damage, every drunk guest. Then we're going to call the police on our terms. Mom will be furious. That's the point. I held out my hand, ready to disappoint our mother together. She took it, her grip firm despite her trembling. I think I've been ready my whole life. Downstairs, the party raged on, but up here in the attic, surrounded by the ghosts of our past, something new was taking shape. Something that felt less like revenge and more like revolution. Mom had taught us well how to be weapons against each other. Now it was time to show her we'd learned to be shields instead. The police lights painted the Victorians' facade in alternating red and blue, a twisted parody of Christmas. Drunk college students stumbled across Grandma's lawn while officers took statements. And there, emerging from her Mercedes like an avenging angel, stood our mother. "What have you done?" Her voice cut through the chaos, aimed directly at me. Not at Sarah, who stood beside me on the porch. Not at the officer documenting the damage. At me. "Exactly what you wanted," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Created enough chaos to justify your intervention." Her perfect composure slipped for just a moment. "I don't know what you're talking about. The trust conditions?" Sarah stepped forward. "The plans to modernize the property? We found your letter, Mom." Mom's eyes narrowed, reassessing the battlefield. "I see you've both been busy spinning stories. Officer, I'd like to press charges for the property damage." "Against your own daughters?" Iris appeared at my side, clutching a familiar-looking envelope. "Stay out of this." Mom's smile turned sharp. "This is a family matter." "Exactly why I'm here." Iris handed the envelope to the officer. "These are copies of letters showing premeditated intent to manipulate property ownership through manufactured incidents. I believe that's relevant to your investigation." Mom's mask cracked completely. "You had no right to keep those letters." "Etta had every right." Iris's voice was steel. "She knew exactly what you'd try to do after she was gone." The officer flipped through the papers, frowning. "Ma'am, you might want to contact your lawyer." "Oh, I already have." Mom pulled out her phone. In fact, a new voice cut in. "You might want to hear this first." A man in a suit approached, holding up his phone. A recording played, Mom's voice discussing her plans to use Sarah to force a property transfer. "Who are you?" Mom demanded. "James Chun, Estate Law. Your daughters retained me this evening." He smiled thinly. "Those trust conditions you were counting on? They work both ways. Attempting to manipulate property transfer through fraudulent means automatically terminates your oversight rights." The color drained from Mom's face. "You can't prove." "The party was their idea, wasn't it?" Sarah's voice shook. "You told me to cause problems. To push Lila, until she snapped. You used me. I was trying to help you both." Mom's composure shattered completely. "This house is wasting away, just like your grandmother's ridiculous ideals. I was giving you a chance at something better." "Better?" I looked at our home, at the damage that suddenly seemed so small compared to the wreckage of our family. "You never understood what better meant to her. To us." "Officer," Chin said quietly, "I believe we have everything we need." Mom's lawyer arrived moments later, huddling with her in urgent whispers. The party guests were cleared out, statements taken, evidence documented. Through it all, Sarah and I stood our ground on the porch, watching our carefully laid traps spring shut. But as Mom's car pulled away, the victory felt hollow. The house stood wounded behind us, its rooms echoing with fresh scars. And despite everything, a part of me ached at the fury and betrayal in our mother's eyes. "What happens now?" Sarah asked, her voice small. I looked at the broken porch railing, the trampled flower beds, the empty wine bottles scattered across Grandma's lawn. So much damage, inside and out. Now we rebuild. All of it. Together? The question hung between us, fragile as spun glass. I thought of Grandma Etta, of all her lessons about forgiveness being harder than revenge, but ultimately more worthwhile. "Together," I said and meant it. "But first, we need to fix that railing before someone falls through it." Sarah picked up a broken spindle, managing a weak smile. "Grandma would have hated seeing it like this." "Then let's make it right. Because sometimes the lowest points show us exactly how to climb back up." A week after the party, Mom appeared on the doorstep, looking smaller somehow. The designer suit hung loose on her frame, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. Sarah opened the door before I could stop her. "You have some nerve showing up here," Sarah said, but her voice wavered. Mom held up her hands in surrender. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I stepped forward. "Say what you came to say." She pulled an envelope from her bag, medical records, not legal documents. My stomach dropped as I scanned the contents. Stage 3 pancreatic cancer. Aggressive treatment plan. Poor prognosis. Now you understand, Mom said softly, why I pushed so hard to secure your futures. By destroying our present? My hands shook as I passed the papers to Sarah. By turning us against each other? I was trying to protect you both. Her composure cracked. This house, these memories, they won't feed you or build your future. I wanted to leave you with something concrete. Like you left me? The words escaped before I could stop them. Or like you controlled Sarah? Everything I did was for you girls.
No.
Sarah's voice cut through the tension. Everything you did was about control. Even this, she waved the medical records, is just another manipulation. Mom flinched. Sarah, please. When were you diagnosed? I asked. Her hesitation told me everything. 6 months ago. Before Grandma Etta died. The pieces clicked into place. You knew she was changing the trust conditions. I was trying to fix things before. Before you lost control, Sarah finished. God, Mom. Do you even hear yourself? Mom sank onto the porch swing, Grandma's swing, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. I don't know how to do this any other way. The admission hung in the air between us. I looked at Sarah, saw my own conflict reflected in her eyes. Then I noticed something else, Mom's hands, trembling slightly as they gripped her designer bag. The same way mine shook when I felt lost. We're not asking you to do anything, I said finally. We're telling you how it's going to be. Mom's head snapped up. If you want to be part of our lives, I continued, you do it our way. No manipulation. No control. Just honesty. And if I can't, then you'll face your illness alone. The words hurt to say, but they needed saying. Your choice. Some choice, she whispered. More than you ever gave us, Sarah said, but her tone had softened slightly. Mom stood, smoothing her suit with shaking hands. And if I agree? What then? I thought of Grandma Etta, of all her lessons about forgiveness and boundaries. About building bridges without letting yourself drown. Then you can come to dinner. Sunday nights. We'll start there. Just dinner? Just dinner, Sarah confirmed. No lawyers, no trust discussions, no renovation plans. Mom looked at the house behind us, really looked at it, maybe for the first time. At the repaired porch railing, the fresh paint, the careful blend of old and new that Sarah and I had created together. I'm not very good at just dinner, she admitted. We know. I held open the door. But you can learn. If you want to. She hesitated on the threshold, looking more human than I'd ever seen her. I don't deserve this chance. Probably not, Sarah said, taking her arm. But we're giving it anyway. Because that's what family does, the real kind, not the kind you try to force us to be. Mom stepped inside, and for a moment, I saw 3 generations of women reflected in Grandma's hallway mirror. The ones here, and the one watching over us. All of us broken in our own ways, but maybe, just maybe, ready to heal. 3 months later, I found the letter while Sarah and I cleaned out the attic. It was tucked inside Grandma Etta's old recipe box, beneath her famous apple pie instructions. The envelope simply read, "For when you need it most." Sarah paused in her sorting. Is that Grandma's handwriting? I nodded, carefully breaking the seal. The paper inside smelled of cinnamon and wisdom. My dearest Lila, it began. If you're reading this, you've already faced the storm I saw coming. Your mother never understood that a home isn't built with perfect walls or modern fixtures. It's built with the courage to keep your door open, even after others have tried to break it down. Sarah set down the box she was holding. She knew Mom would try something. She knew Mom, I corrected, continuing to read. And she knew us. The letter went on, not with accusations or warnings, but with a recipe, not for pie, but for healing. Each ingredient was a lesson, forgiveness measured in cups of patience, boundaries drawn with firm but loving hands, strength folded in like egg whites, carefully but completely. There's something else, Sarah said, reaching into the box. She pulled out 3 keys on an old brass ring. To the garden shed. I realized. where Grandma kept her most precious things. We found Mom in the kitchen, awkwardly attempting to roll out pie crust for our weekly dinner. Her hands shook less these days. The treatment was working, slowly but surely. Like us. "We need to show you something," I said. The garden shed was exactly as Grandma had left it. Tools lined the walls, each with its own story. But it was the wooden chest in the corner that drew us in. Inside, we found photo albums, letters, and a deed, not to the house, but to a small piece of land by the lake. "Your grandmother's favorite place," Mom whispered, touching the deed with trembling fingers. "She used to take you there, Lila, Before you left," I finished. "She wanted us to have it. All of us." "But why?" Sarah asked, flipping through photos of younger, happier versions of ourselves. The answer lay in Grandma's letter. Because sometimes healing needs neutral ground. A place without walls or memories, where you can build something new together. Mom's hand stilled on an old photograph, her as a child, laughing on the lake shore. I forgot about this place, about who I was there. "Maybe that's why Grandma left it to us," I said. "Not as a weapon or a bargaining chip, but as a chance." Sarah picked up one of Grandma's old gardening trowels. We could plant something there, together. The word hung in the air, fragile but hopeful, like seedlings breaking through soil. "I'd like that," Mom said softly. Then, with more effort than any business deal had ever required. "If you'll let me." I looked at Sarah, saw my own cautious hope reflected back. "We start small," I said. "Maybe wildflowers." "Wildflowers," Mom repeated, as if tasting possibility. "Your grandmother always said they were the strongest plants, growing wherever they chose, not where they were told." We locked up the shed together, each keeping a key. The recipe box came back to the kitchen, where Sarah's attempts at pie now joined mine in various stages of success and failure. Mom's designer suits gradually gained flour stains and dirt smudges from our weekend visits to the lake. And the house? It stood as it always had, its rooms slowly filling with new memories alongside the old. Not perfect, not completely healed, but standing strong, like us. Grandma would have liked that best of all.
Or when my husband learned I would not be able to inherit anything from my father, and he shouted at me, "What? Is it incapable of being inherited? I have nothing for you. We are in the middle of a divorce." And later, I took my revenge on my new husband and sister. I am Sandra, a 32 years old worker in an office, and my husband is Richard. We have been married for over 2 years. I was introduced to Richard by a relative and then getting married. My family was wealthy, and my sister Susan had no other children for them to worry about inheriting their money. So that when our relatives Terry and Nate found him, they introduced me. My husband came to live with us in my family house after. My mother died a couple of years ago, and my dad, hubby, and I lived together. My husband seemed very kind and treated my father well, but a relative who introduced him to me said something concerning just before our wedding. "I know I introduced Richard to you, but be careful. He's a bit obsessed with money." I was troubled by this warning so close to our wedding, but I didn't notice any signs of greed from my husband, so we went ahead and got married. Even after marriage, I kept an eye on my husband because of the relative's words, but he didn't seem obsessed with money. However, he did seem curious about my father's wealth, casually asking how much property we had when they were drinking together. My father openly talked about it, so I didn't worry too much. Another thing my husband was interested in was my sister. My sister is 5 years younger than me, lively and outgoing, in contrast to my calm demeanor. Her relationships with men are quite flashy. She doesn't look like me, and my husband was surprised when he first saw her. Susan is quite different from Sandra, isn't she? Seeing my husband fascinated by my beautiful sister, who was the complete opposite of plain and unnoticeable me, made me feel complicated. The relatives introduced me, a quiet and plain-looking person, because they were worried that if I didn't get married, there would be no one to inherit the family home. I thought there was no need to worry since I had a beautiful sister, but later I understood why the relatives were concerned. My father spoiled my sister, letting her go to college and even community college after graduation. My sister didn't have any particular goal in attending college or community college. She simply didn't want to work. My mother tried to persuade her to get a job right after college, but my father insisted on letting her go to community college. After graduating from community college, my sister got a job at my father's acquaintance's company, but quit after only 6 months. Her excuse for quitting surprised me. I can't showcase my talents at that company. My mother and I were dumbfounded by my sister, who talked as if she understood everything about the job, even though she hadn't worked for even half a year. But my father believed her and quickly found her another job. After she started working at the new company, my mother fell ill and was hospitalized. When my mother was hospitalized, my sister visited the hospital every day, constantly taking time off work. She eventually quit this job too, saying she needed to take care of my mother, but her care was just sitting in the hospital room, chatting with my mother, or staring at her mobile phone in the waiting room. I had to go to the hospital to change my mother's laundry, and my sister was no help at all. My mother might have been happy to have someone to talk to, but about a month after being hospitalized, her condition worsened to the point where she couldn't even speak. Within 2 weeks of her condition worsening, my mother passed away. My father and sister were so shaken by the sudden news that they couldn't even prepare for the funeral, so I had to take care of everything. Thanks to the cooperation of our relatives, we were somehow able to send my mother off peacefully. After my mother's death, my sister started a part-time job and moved out to live on her own. Since her part-time earnings weren't enough to cover the rent, my father had been paying for her rent and utilities, and it seems she's using the money she earns for fun. Whenever her part-time salary isn't enough, she goes to my father to get some extra money. When my mother was alive, she was strict with my sister, so my father didn't give her any allowance. Now, he gives her as much as she wants. I thought it was no problem if both my father and sister were satisfied with this arrangement. Even after I got married and started living with my husband in my parents' home, my father continued to give my sister an allowance. I didn't notice at the time, but my sister was also asking my husband for money, and he was happily giving it to her. He couldn't say no to my beautiful sister, and he would give her money saying, "Keep this a secret from Sandra. If she finds out, she might get jealous." My sister seemed to be living off the money she got from my father and husband, going to her part-time job whenever she felt like it. But that lifestyle didn't last forever. It ended when my father fell ill and had to be hospitalized. I was taking care of my father, visiting the hospital between work, but my sister never showed up. Instead, she started calling me, demanding money. "I've been getting money from Dad every month, so keep giving it to me. The rent and public utilities are all being deducted from Dad's account," she spoke to me in an angry tone. I was surprised by the facts I learned for the first time. I was furious at my sister, who cared only about her life and not about our hospitalized father. I really wanted to hang up on her, but she seemed to be in trouble, so I asked her how much money my father had been giving her every month. "How much are you getting from Dad every month?" "Get a full-time job and live on the money you earn," I said. My sister answered grumpily, "Stop nagging. I was getting $1,000 a month. Rent is separate, you know." I was dumbfounded by my sister, who proudly told me the amount. I thought that if I kept giving this much money to my grown-up sister every month, she would never feel like working seriously. I didn't think it was a big problem to give money to my sister, as I thought my father would recover soon after being hospitalized. However, my father's condition suddenly worsened, and I hurriedly contacted our relatives. The doctor also told me it was a serious situation, and I was quite shocked. I wanted my husband's support during this time, but he rarely visited the hospital, claiming he was busy with work. Moreover, when he did show up, he would ask me inappropriate questions like, "Joseph's inheritance must be huge, right? Since you and your sister are the only heirs, are you going to split it in half?" I had no words to respond to my husband, who only talked about the inheritance. I felt both realization and disgust, understanding what the relatives meant when they said my husband was obsessed with money. When I called my sister to tell her about our father's critical condition, she was only concerned about her money. "More importantly, make sure you pay me every month. I can't live without that money." The call ended abruptly. I was furious at my sister's words, but I was also concerned about the faint male voice I heard on the other end of the phone. I had a bad feeling recognizing that voice. About a month later, my father passed away, and neither my sister nor my husband were there in his final moments. Having experienced my mother's funeral, I knew how heavy the task of preparing for a funeral could be. Moreover, neither my husband nor my sister helped with anything, and my sister didn't even attend the funeral. My husband did show up, but he disappeared right after, saying he had work. A relative who introduced me to my husband noticed his absence and asked me, "Where's Richard? It's strange for the host's husband to not be here, isn't it?" I could only respond with a wry smile. He was busy with work, so he went home. The relative signed up my answer, but I felt like sighing too. After my father's funeral ended and I finally had a moment to breathe, my husband asked me with a sleazy grin, "Finally, how much did you inherit? Even if you split it in half, you must have inherited a considerable amount, right?" Just as the relatives had warned me before marriage, my husband seemed consumed with thoughts of my father's inheritance. My sister got $92 million, and I got zero. I hadn't even talked to the lawyer yet, and I was still trying to process the funeral. Looking at my husband, who was happily talking about the inheritance, I felt like laughing more than getting angry. My husband, who believed my words, immediately yelled, "What? You can't inherit any property? I don't need you anymore. Divorce now." I felt the same way, so I shot back, "Let's do it. You married me for my father's inheritance in the first place. I'll divorce you," I shouted and thrust the prepared divorce papers at my husband. He seemed a little flustered, as if he had anticipated this, but he signed them anyway. As he left the house after signing the divorce papers, he said, "I'll divorce you, who gets zero inheritance, and remarry your sister Susan, who gets the $92 million, and left." I didn't care about his words and immediately proceeded with the divorce. I was able to part ways with my terrible husband. My ex-husband seemed to have started the process of marrying my sister the very next day. A few days later, I received a call from my ex-husband. "Do you still believe that story? When will you handle the inheritance? Hurry up and give Susan the $92 million, my ex-husband yelled over the phone. I had been waiting for him to contact me. I didn't want to reach out to my ex-husband, who had left the house on his own. I replied to him in a businesslike tone. "Let's discuss this at my place next Sunday. I'm preparing for the procedure and will be waiting." Thinking he would receive the inheritance, my ex-husband happily hung up, but I was looking forward to seeing his face when he learned the truth. On the weekend, my ex-husband and sister came to my family home, surprised to find that I had called a lawyer. However, my ex-husband seemed to convince himself. "Of course, You need a lawyer when inheriting a large sum of money. Then the lawyer turned to my ex-husband with a puzzled look and began to speak. Before we can discuss the inheritance, there's the matter of Sandra's compensation claim against Richard. He showed my ex-husband several photos featuring him leaving my sister's house with clear dates marked. The lawyer addressed my ex-husband. These are evidence photos of infidelity before the divorce was finalized, so you must pay compensation. I had heard my ex-husband talking about the inheritance over the phone with my sister and immediately asked the lawyer to investigate his infidelity. Perhaps they thought I was distracted by my father's funeral, but my ex-husband and sister met at her house almost daily, allowing me to gather plenty of evidence. The conversation shifted from inheritance to compensation, leaving my ex-husband and sister dumbfounded. But my ex-husband quickly recovered and retorted, "Compensation is nothing compared to the $92 million from the inheritance." "I'll pay it right away," he said, as he signed the compensation claim documents handed to him by the lawyer, acting all high and mighty. I confirmed it and told him, "Enjoy your life with my sister, who inherited zero. Since you signed, I'll make sure you pay the compensation." The moment they heard inheritance zero, my sister screamed, "Why is my mine getting 90? Her husband turned bright red and angrily said, "There's no way the inheritance is zero. I won't allow you to take it all for yourself." The lawyer calmly began to explain to the furious pair, "Susan is already the stepdaughter of your late mother, and since she was not legally adopted by your late father, there is no legal parent-child relationship. Therefore, Susan cannot inherit your father's estate." I also explained to my confused sister, "When our parents remarried, Susan was only about a year old, so you probably don't remember. But I do. I was 6 years old when our parents remarried, and I remember being happy to suddenly have a sister. I never thought that sister would steal my husband. Both parents were struggling with young children, and there was a mediator between them who thought it best for them to remarry. My mother loved me like her real daughter, and my father cherished my sister. Perhaps my father spoiled my sister because she wasn't his biological daughter, and he wanted to be extra careful. Although both parents remarried with children, my mother suspected my relatives of targeting my wealthy family's assets and refused to legally adopt my sister. The relatives only recommended marriage proposals to me because they knew I was the only one who could inherit my father's property. If my parents had had a child between them, things might have become even more complicated. But fortunately or unfortunately, they never had one. Now, I understand that my father continued to support my sister financially, even after she became an adult, because he couldn't pass on his inheritance to her. I also never legally adopted my mother, so we weren't legally parent and child, but it never mattered in our daily lives. It seems my parents never told my sister that they were both remarried, and she only learned the truth today. My ex-husband seemed to understand the situation immediately, his face turning from bright red to pale blue. He had not only failed to get the inheritance he was expecting from my sister, but had also signed documents to pay compensation. With a blue face, my ex-husband asked me, "Was what you said, my sister gets $92 million and I get nothing, a lie?" I held back my laughter and replied, "Of course it's a lie. It's to get back at you for cheating on me behind my back. Besides, there's no way a bankrupt inheritance would be worth $92 million. Even my wealthy father didn't have $92 million in inheritance." Suddenly, my sister, who had been silent, screamed, "I've been counting on Dad's inheritance and have done a lot of shopping. What will happen to the money Dad used to pay me? Will Sandra pay for it? I answered my frightened sister. You have a reliable husband now, so you don't need it anymore, do you? Let Richard support you. My sister stared at her pale-faced ex-husband, who shook his head in response. I've also done a lot of shopping expecting the inheritance, so I can't afford it. Besides, I have to pay compensation, so I'm at my limit. After saying this, my husband suddenly began to apologize deeply to me. Sandra, I'm sorry. It was my fault. Will you forgive me and start over? A lawyer watching this was laughing as he prepared to leave. Where had the arrogant attitude gone when he first came to the house? His deep apology looked ridiculous. After the discussion, my ex-husband and sister left dejectedly, and they soon divorced. For my ex-husband, who remarried with the goal of inheriting from my sister, he seemed to have no interest in her since he didn't get the inheritance. He even said to himself that with the payment of compensation to me, he couldn't take care of my sister. My ex-husband had no assets, so it was decided to pay the compensation in installments from his monthly salary. The lawyer advised me that this way I wouldn't miss out. My sister, without the support of our father, had to work part-time every day, but she couldn't make the debt payments and ended up filing for personal bankruptcy. After that, she even gave up her condominium and disappeared, and no one knows where she went. My father had been supporting my sister financially, but by spoiling her like that, she became unable to work seriously. Afterward, I started living alone in my family home, and some relatives talked about introducing me to a potential marriage partner that I declined. I don't want to be introduced to another man like my ex-husband, so this time I want to find a marriage partner on my own. Life is weird, you know. I mean, whatever. That one time I threw my vanilla ice cream onto some Gap pants in the park by accident was a fluke. Let me put it this way. I am someone who is called Brenda, and stupid moments are my little shadow. Just as I was blissed out in the sun with my favorite ice cream, and then boom, tripped right by a park bench this guy, totally into his phone, was sitting on. Shoot, I'm so sorry, I said as the ice cream flew right onto his thigh. He raised his head with good humor that bordered on exasperation, and then did something I found surprising. He laughed. Guess I needed a bit more vanilla in my day anyway, he said. His lighthearted reaction eased my embarrassment. I pulled out some napkins, trying to help clean the mess. I swear I'm not usually an ice cream bomber, I said. It's cool. Sit down. He gestured up to the space next to him. I'm Mark, and now thanks to you, I have a sweet story about how my day got better. Grinning, I sat down. I'm Brenda, and I guess I owe you an ice cream now. We hit it off right away. It turned out Mark worked in IT, not too far from where I did my web design gigs from home. We chatted about everything from tech to the latest movies, and by the time we parted ways, we'd set up a date for the weekend. Fast forward a bit, and things between us were great. But then came the day I met his mother, Mrs. White. Mark had told me she was a bit traditional, but nothing prepared me for the reality. The moment I walked into their family home, there she was, sitting with a book on astrology spread out before her. Hello, I'm Brenda, I said, reaching out to shake her hand. She looked me over, not bothering to hide her scrutiny, and then took my hand limply. Mark tells me you're a web designer and you work from home. Her tone made it sound less like a job and more like a hobby. Yeah, I've been doing it for a couple of years now. It's going really well. I defended my career choice, feeling my cheeks heat up. She hummed, flipping through her astrology book. And your birthday, dear? I told her, and she flipped through her book, her finger tracing lines of text before she clucked her tongue. Oh, That's an unfortunate date. Very challenging and astrologically incompatible with my Mark. I tried to keep my cool. Well, we're doing just fine so far. Mrs. Whitaker smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile that said she knew better. We'll see, dear. These things have a way of showing true colors in time. The whole visit was tense. Every word out of her mouth was a subtle dig at me. My job, my background, even my taste in clothes. I got the clear message. I was not what she had envisioned for Mark. So, Mark and I decided to get hitched after about 3 years of that ice cream incident. Yeah, 3 years of dating, dealing with his mom's cold vibes, and just life throwing its usual curveballs. But we were solid, like nothing could really shake us. We were sitting on the couch one lazy Sunday, just chilling and watching some old comedy flicks when Mark turned to me, his eyes all serious, which was a rare switch from his usual grin. "Brenda, I've been thinking," he started, and I felt that weird flutter in my stomach, like butterflies going nuts. "What's up?" I asked, trying to sound chill even though my heart was doing somersaults. "I kind of want to spend the rest of my life watching bad movies with you. What do you say we make it official?" His smile was hopeful, kind of shy, which wasn't like him at all. I laughed, more out of relief because, hell, I wanted this so much. "Are you asking me to marry you without a ring?" "Mark Whitaker, damn right I am. But I promise I'll get you a ring that'll make up for this lame proposal." He was grinning now, confident as he pulled me into a hug. Planning the wedding, though, that was a circus, especially with Mrs. Whitaker throwing her 2 cents in every chance she got. We were deciding on wedding invites one evening, and she was there, of course, peering over my shoulder like some kind of hawk. "You're not seriously considering this design, are you?" She frowned at the floral pattern Mark and I had picked out. "It's far too—" "Mom, it's what we want." Mark jumped in, always my champion. "I like it too," I added, more to stand my ground than anything else. I wasn't about to let her bulldoze every choice we made. "It's your wedding," she sighed, looking anything but pleased. "But remember, the invitation sets the tone for the entire event." The big day came faster than I expected. It was perfect, beautiful even, despite Mrs. Whitaker's constant hovering. Mark looked dashing, and when I walked down the aisle towards him, his grin was all I needed to see. We had our ceremony outdoors under this big old oak tree. The preacher was a buddy of Mark's, someone who knew us as a couple and not just 2 individuals coming together. "Do you, Brenda, take Mark to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? And do you, Mark, take Brenda to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" We exchanged rings, and when Mark slid that band onto my finger, it felt like a victory, not just over Mrs. Whitaker's snide remarks or the stress of wedding planning, but over every damn obstacle that tried to throw us off our game. "You may now kiss the bride," the preacher announced, and Mark didn't waste a second. When his lips met mine, cheers erupted all around us. It was like a movie, only better because it was real and it was ours. We'd been living together for 2 years, and every step felt right. But buying our own place was a big leap. We spent weekends touring homes, debating features, and balancing what we wanted with what we could actually afford. One sunny Saturday, we stumbled upon a house that ticked almost all our boxes. It was charming, had a spacious kitchen, and a big backyard. The only hiccup, it had a swimming pool. I had told Mark about my fear of water, a fear that rooted deep from an incident in my childhood where I nearly drowned. Since then, pools, even bathtubs, were a no-go for me. But Mark, bless his heart, was enamored with everything else about the house. Brenda, I know it's got a pool, but hear me out. Everything else is perfect, and we're getting it for a steal, Mark tried to reassure me as we stood looking over the property. I chewed on my lip, considering. The house really was beautiful, and the price was incredibly reasonable for what it offered. Okay, but I'm not going near that pool, Mark. You know that, right? Mark wrapped an arm around me, pulling me close. Of course, babe. We'll figure it out. Maybe down the line, we can even fill it in or something. For now, we don't have to use it. We moved in, and the place was a dream come true. The space, the neighborhood, it felt right. But it wasn't long before Mrs. Whitaker came over to see our new home, and I braced myself for her comments. She always had a way of making her disapproval known, especially about money and my job. As she walked through our new living room, her eyes scanned every detail, her lips pursed. Finally, she turned to us, her tone laced with skepticism. It's a big place, isn't it? Must have cost a pretty penny. Mark, you're sure you can handle the mortgage on this? Mark, ever the peacemaker, tried to smooth things over. Mom, we've got it covered. Brenda and I both put in for the house. It's not just on me. I chimed in, trying to assert my contribution, tired of the insinuation that I was just riding on Mark's coattails. That's right, Mrs. Whitaker. I work as well, you know. My web design job pays well, and it helped us get this place. She scoffed, clearly not buying it. Working from home on your computer all day? I don't see how that can bring in enough to afford something like this. It seems more like a hobby than a real job. The rest of her visit went by in a blur of tense smiles and changed subjects. After she left, I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Mark wrapped his arms around me, pulling me close. Ignore her, Brenda. We know the truth. We're doing this together, and that's what matters. As days turned into weeks, our new house really started to feel like a home. I set up my home office, and it became my sanctuary. From there, I tackled web design projects that not only paid well, but also proved I was more than capable of contributing to our dream. Mark took care of the yard and maintained the pool, even though I never went near it. It was another sunny afternoon when the incident happened. Mrs. Whitaker had decided to drop by, supposedly to bring over some of Mark's old stuff from his childhood, but I knew there'd be more to it. She always had a knack for turning a kind gesture into an interrogation. We were out in the backyard, me trying to make small talk, when her eyes fixed on the pool. Brenda, I never see you or Mark in that pool. Don't you ever swim? The question caught me off guard. I took a deep breath, deciding maybe honesty would shut it down. Actually, I'm afraid of water. Had a bad experience as a kid, almost drowned. Haven't been comfortable around pools or large bodies of water since. Her expression shifted from curiosity to something I couldn't quite place. Was it disbelief? Disdain? Whatever it was, it didn't feel supportive. Well, that's just unusual, isn't it? A grown woman afraid of a little water, she scoffed, and I felt my face heat up in embarrassment. I tried to laugh it off, but the conversation left a sour taste in my mouth. Later, I found out that it wasn't just a sour conversation. It was the start of a rumor mill. Mrs. Whitaker, in her infinite wisdom, had decided to share my fear with her circle of friends and family, embellishing the story to make it sound like I was mentally unstable because of my phobia. The news came back to me through a friend who'd heard it from someone else. Brenda, is it true what they're saying? That you're too scared to even look at your own pool? Hurt and betrayed, I didn't know how to respond. I confronted Mark. He was curious when he heard about it. She did what? That's it. I'm talking to her. This has to stop. Mark confronted his mother, and the fallout was epic. He told her in no uncertain terms that her behavior was unacceptable. In response, Mrs. Whitaker's attitude only got worse. She accused me of being manipulative, of keeping her son away from her. One afternoon, she called me directly, her voice shrill and accusing. You're just trying to keep me out of the house. What are you hiding, Brenda? Meeting someone else while my son is at work? Her words were venomous, intended to wound. I was shocked. Mrs. Whitaker, that's ridiculous. I would never cheat on Mark. You know that, I said, but she was beyond reason. Oh, I know your type. You think you're so clever, but I know what's going on. I told Mark about the call and couldn't believe it. She said, what? Now that's crazy, Brenda. You know that's not true. He laughed it off, but I was shaken. The fact that his mother would go to such lengths to paint me in a negative light was disturbing. Mark agreed and decided that we needed to set some boundaries. Visits from his mother became less frequent, and when she did come over, Mark made sure he was there to mediate. Life started feeling a bit off. A few weeks after the last blow-up with Mrs. Whitaker, I started noticing things, little things that wouldn't mean much to anyone else. But to me, they felt like signals in a fog. It started with the feeling of being watched. I first noticed it when I was at the grocery store. I'd be picking out vegetables and get this prickly feeling on the back of my neck, like someone's eyes were glued to me. I'd turn around and sometimes catch a glimpse of someone turning away. It was probably nothing, just random shoppers, I told myself. Then it happened again at the laundromat. I was folding clothes when that same eerie feeling washed over me. I snapped my head up and saw through the front window a man standing across the street. He was just standing there, looking straight at me. I blinked, and he was gone. You're being paranoid, Brenda, I muttered to myself as I shoved the folded clothes into my bag. But the real kicker came one evening at home. Mark was late from work, and I was in the living room catching up on some web design work. I felt it again, that stare. I peeked out the window, and there he was, the same man from the laundromat across the street, barely visible in the dim streetlight, but definitely there, definitely watching. I called Mark immediately, my voice a notch higher than usual. Mark, I think someone's been following me. I've seen him a few times now. Mark's voice was calm, almost too calm. Brenda, love, you're probably just tired. You've been working so hard lately. Why don't you take a break? I tried to listen to him, tried to think maybe he was right. Maybe it was all in my head. I started doing more yoga, tried meditation, anything to calm down. But that nagging feeling wouldn't go away. I just couldn't shake the sense that I was being watched. Then it happened. I was leaving the grocery store, and there he was in the parking lot again. This time, I was ready. I quickly pulled out my phone and snapped a picture before he could walk away. I had proof now, not just jittery nerves. When I showed Mark the photo that evening, I could tell he finally saw what I was seeing. Okay, that's not normal, he admitted. Later that night, we were walking home from a nearby restaurant when Mark suddenly grabbed the arm of someone passing by. It was him, the man from the photo. Why are you following my wife? Mark's voice was tense, his grip tight on the man's arm. The man looked cornered, his eyes darting around before settling on a resigned sigh. Look, I'm a private investigator. I was hired to keep an eye on her. That's all. Mark's brow furrowed. Hired by who? Your mother hired me. She wanted proof of infidelity, the investigator confessed, almost ashamed. Mark was livid. He pulled out his phone and dialed his mother right there. Mom, "What the hell are you doing hiring someone to follow Brenda? That's it. You're out of our lives until you can behave like a decent human being." The conversation was heated, and by the end of it, Mark was shaking with anger. He apologized to me 1,000,000 times on the way home. The next day, he went out and bought cameras for every corner of our property. "No one's going to invade our privacy like that again," he promised as he installed them. After everything that happened, Mark suggested we take a vacation to clear our heads. "Let's just get away from all this drama, Brenda. Just you and me, somewhere peaceful," he said one evening as we sat exhausted on our couch, surrounded by the quiet of our home that suddenly felt too loud. I didn't need convincing. "Yes, let's do it. I really need a break, Mark." We decided on a little cabin up in the mountains, away from everything and everyone. It was perfect. The air was fresh, the scenery breathtaking, and most importantly, it was just us. No distractions, no unwanted intrusions. Up there, surrounded by the serene beauty of nature, I could feel all my tensions melting away. We spent our days hiking and our evenings cuddled up by the fire. I could breathe again, laugh again, and just be me without worrying about who might be watching or what they might be thinking. When we returned home, I was glowing, not just from the mountain sun, but with a new joy. I was pregnant. We discovered it a few weeks after we got back, and it filled us with a happiness that was profound yet tinged with anxiety. I didn't want anyone to know yet, especially not Mrs. Whitaker. I was terrified that the stress she could bring might harm the baby, a little miracle we had waited for so long. Working from home made it easy to keep the pregnancy under wraps. I didn't go out much, and my belly thankfully stayed small, unusually small according to the doctor, but nothing to worry about, he assured us. "These things vary," he said during one of my checkups. "Every pregnancy is different." As my 8th month approached, and it was getting harder to hide my condition, Mark and I decided it was time to share our joy. We planned a small celebration at our house, a baby shower of sorts, inviting all our relatives. Despite everything, I felt it was right to invite Mrs. Whitaker. Taking a deep breath, I dialed her number, my heart thumping in my chest. It rang 3 times before she picked up. "Hello?" "Hi, it's Brenda," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I wanted to share some news. Mark and I are expecting a baby. We're having a little get-together next week to celebrate, and we'd love for you to come." There was a pause long enough to make me worry I'd made a mistake. Then her voice, surprisingly calm, responded, "I'll be there." The day of the celebration arrived. Our home was filled with laughter and chatter, relatives cooing over baby clothes and guessing if it would be a boy or a girl. I mingled, my hand often resting on my small belly, feeling the gentle nudges of our unborn child. Everything was fine until my biggest nightmare came along, Mrs. Whitaker. Throughout the afternoon, she kept her distance, whispering to anyone who would listen, suggesting that my pregnancy was a fabrication. "Look at her," she would say spitefully. 8 months along and her stomach is barely showing. She's made it all up to trap my son and get at his money." To my relief, her words didn't take root. The guests chuckled among themselves, rolling their eyes at her wild accusations. They knew her history with me, her relentless disapproval, and took her claims as just another one of her absurd stories. But Mrs. Whitaker was persistent. "I'll prove it to all of you," she muttered as she stomped off, her face flushed with anger or embarrassment, maybe both. Feeling a mix of dismay and a desire to finally put an end to all this nonsense, I followed her out into the courtyard near the pool. Can we just talk? This isn't true, and you know it, I pleaded, my voice calm despite the churn of emotions inside me. Her face was contorted with anger. Save it. I know what you're up to, she snapped coldly. As soon as I turned away from her, desperate to convince her, I suddenly felt a hard shove from behind. My balance lost, I stumbled forward towards the edge of the pool, the water all rushing towards me in a blur of fear. Terrified, I fell into the water, the old panic from my childhood washing over me. Darkness edged my vision as I began to sink, my mind screaming for help. When I awoke, I was in a hospital bed, the sterile beep of machines filling the quiet room. Mark was there, his face pale and strained as he held my hand tightly. "How's the baby?" were the first words that tumbled from my lips, more a croak than a question. He squeezed my hand, his eyes glossy. "The doctors, they had to do an emergency delivery." "He's in intensive care now," he whispered, the tremble in his voice betraying his worry. My heart sank, tears flooding my eyes as the reality set in. Our baby, our little boy, was fighting for his life in an incubator. The next morning, I woke up still in shock, the events of the previous evening replaying in my mind like a nightmarish loop. I was in the hospital, feeling weak but driven by a need to clear up the confusion. "Mark, you need to look at the security footage from last night," I said to my husband, my voice urgent but shaky. "Your mom, she pushed me into the pool. It wasn't an accident." Mark looked bewildered, almost refusing to believe what I was saying. "Brenda, are you sure? Mom can be harsh, but to physically push you? That just doesn't sound like her." "Just please check the cameras," I insisted, my gut twisting with the fear that he might not take me seriously. He nodded slowly, pulling out his laptop to access the surveillance system we had installed at home. The tension was palpable as he scanned through the footage, his face turning from skepticism to horror as the scene played out on the screen. "God, Brenda, I'm so sorry. I can't believe she would do this," he stammered, his face pale as he turned to me, the laptop forgotten beside him. He called the police immediately. The evidence was clear and irrefutable, leading to his mother's swift arrest. Mrs. Whitaker was charged and the trial was set. Her defense was that it was all supposed to be a joke, an attempt to prove I was lying about my pregnancy. She claimed she thought my pregnancy belly was fake and expected it to come off when I hit the water, exposing my deceit in front of everyone. But the video evidence, along with witness testimonies from the party, painted a different picture. The jury didn't buy her story of a harmless prank gone wrong. She was found guilty of assault and reckless endangerment. The judge was stern as he delivered her sentence of 3 years in prison. He also ordered substantial financial compensation for the medical bills and rehabilitation costs for our son, who had been born prematurely due to the stress and trauma of the incident. Mrs. Whitaker had to sell her house to cover the fines and compensation. As our son fought through his early months, undergoing numerous medical treatments and therapy to catch up in his development, the strain on us was immense. Every day was a battle filled with hospital visits, therapy sessions, and constant worry. But gradually, with relentless care and an array of medical interventions, he began to thrive. Throughout it all, Mark and I grew closer. Our bond was fortified by the trials we faced together. Our love for our son and for each other deepened in ways I couldn't have imagined. As Mrs. Whitaker's release date approached, I made a decision for the safety and well-being of our family. I petitioned for and was granted a restraining order against her. It prohibited any contact with us, and especially with our son. It was a tough decision, but necessary. The safety of our child was our top priority, and we couldn't risk any more disturbances in our lives. One evening, as we put our son to bed, Mark looked at me with a soft smile. You know, despite everything, I feel lucky. We have each other, we have him, and we have a future. It was the end of a harrowing chapter, but more importantly, it was the beginning of a new story for us, one filled with hope, healing, and happiness. My name is Courtney. I'm 26 years old. I met my boyfriend on an online game, and as of today, we've been dating for exactly 1 year. I was apprehensive at first, since we met online, and our family backgrounds are somewhat similar, so we surprisingly clicked admin. He is the one now who I have most in common with and was my guiding light. His friend invited us to an outdoor party, and we went together. It was a barbecue at his friend's father's cabin. It all tasted wonderful, and the friends who put on this meal for me with their wives/girlfriends were so lovely. I had been worried initially, but by the time we started to head home, I found myself settling down. On the way back, suddenly he stopped the car and started to talk. "What did you think about my friends? They are all very nice people. I'm glad I could get along with them and had fun. Thank you for taking me there. Really, I'm glad you know. I hope we can keep having fun like this, preferably as husband and wife. What do you think?" I was surprised. Was that a proposal? Of course. My answer is yes. It's like a dream. We were so excited. In the heat of the moment, we decided, let's have our wedding there, and headed to a memorable hotel. This is the first place he brought me to on our first drive date when we had just started dating. It's a quiet hotel in the mountains, and from the restaurant you can see the lake in front of the hotel. Not only was the view stunning, but there was also a couple having their wedding at that time, and he remembered me saying how lovely it was. We both agreed that we would like to have our wedding at that hotel, but as soon as we arrived, our hopes were dashed. It is indeed a secluded hotel, but it is famous for its high status. At the moment, we were returning from an outdoor event, dressed casually in t-shirts, jeans, sneakers, and carrying backpacks. It was clear that we weren't fitting into the upscale atmosphere of this hotel. However, the bellhop who should have greeted us glanced at us and then blatantly ignored us. We even caught him exchanging looks and laughing with other staff members. We began to feel self-conscious about our attire, but my boyfriend confidently continued walking deeper into the lobby. During this time, the front desk staff were whispering and pointing toward us. It was an uncomfortable feeling. The last time we were here, we were dressed more formally, and the atmosphere was completely different. Feeling out of place, I tugged at his hand, but he pulled mine back as if to tell me not to worry, and we arrived at the concierge desk. Upon seeing us, the concierge seemed startled, but after taking a good look at us, he asked us with a cold smile, "May I help you?" I wanted to retort that, of course, we needed help. That's why we were standing there. But I let my boyfriend handle the situation. "We are actually considering holding our wedding ceremony here. Could you tell us where the wedding reception desk is?" Upon hearing this, the concierge made a clearly disgusted face. "This isn't your ordinary city hotel. It's a place frequented by celebrities and the wealthy. I don't think it's the kind of place where people like you would hold a wedding." "I'm aware. We've been here before. We loved the view and thought it would be great to hold our ceremony here. As I said, this isn't a place where people like you would have a wedding." "What do you mean by that?" "Can you just connect us to the wedding reception desk?" I could sense his frustration growing as his voice raised. I gently squeezed his hand to calm him down. The concierge continued, What I'm saying is this hotel is not a place for poor people like you. Please leave immediately. What? The poor? Did he just call us poor? This concierge just called us poor? Despite his polite phrasing, he just called us poor. I was ready to tell him off for his snooty attitude, but I decided to let my boyfriend handle this. Did you just call your customer poor? What's wrong with the staff training at this hotel, sir? I must ask you to leave this lobby immediately, as it is getting dirty. It's causing an inconvenience to the other guests. Cut it out already. We're just asking for a wedding consultation. Can't you at least let us look around without any hassle? A tour? A wedding? You've got to be kidding. Even if you worked your whole life and saved every penny, you couldn't afford a wedding here. A tour would be a complete waste of time, wouldn't it? Hey, that's enough. Let's go home. The other customers are watching too. Courtney, just stay out of it. This hotel won't do if they can't get it together. They need to act properly. He's flipped his switch. He hates injustice so much that he's ruthless when dealing with people who act unfairly. Generally, this only stirs up animosity and heats things up. How did you learn customer service? You're supposed to be a specialist as a concierge, right? Is it acceptable to treat us the way you just did? What? What are you talking about? At that moment, a voice came from behind. What's going on here? Apparently, the manager came over, thinking we were causing a disturbance. We're simply asking to be shown around because we're interested in having a wedding here, he replied stoically. Just like the other staff, the manager gave us a top-to-bottom once-over, chuckled dismissively, and said, I'm afraid a wedding at our hotel might be out of your reach. The concierge joined in after hearing his words. That's exactly what I told him, but they won't leave and it's causing a problem. It's a disturbance to our other guests for you to be in the lobby for such a long period. I'm sorry, but I think it's best if you give up on the wedding and please leave. Hold on a second. We were just asking to look around because we're interested in having a wedding here. Isn't it okay if you just show us around? Sir, I am the manager of this hotel. If you continue to loiter here, he gestured to call security. So, what do we need to do to be able to look around? Well, if you were to buy the hotel and become the owner, that's not going to happen, but... At his words, I was on the brink of losing it, thinking, what the heck is he talking about? But he just said, I see, so that's how it is, the owner, huh? And started to ponder. Just then, security started to approach us, so I grabbed his hand and urged him to leave. As we walked away with our backs to the manager, he started giving instructions to the concierge. Contact the cleaning staff. The lobby has been completely dirtied. Have it cleaned immediately. What the heck was dirty? In my mind, I cursed at them, thinking their attitudes were far dirtier than anything else. We left the hotel behind us, feeling quite upset. I thought of taking a walk in the garden and admiring the lake before heading home, but we were quickly spotted by the manager from before as we strolled through the garden. Yes, this is troublesome. If you walk around here, it could ruin their view for other guests who are enjoying the scenery. What's the big deal about looking at the view? That's not okay. This view is for the guests who use our hotel. If you can't afford it, please hurry and leave. He tried to shoo us away. Are you possibly thinking about a wedding? Dreaming of a garden wedding? It's useless. Do you have any idea how much it costs to rent out this entire garden? Please make your way out. Then he sprayed me with a hose. Stop loitering and get going. Oh no, I'm all wet now. What is this old guy thinking? This hotel might not be as safe as we thought, even if he's not the one in charge. Hey, what do you think you're doing? There was a stray cat in the garden. I was just sprinkling water to clean it up. Oh, it's still here. He threatened to spray water again. My boyfriend, at his wit's end with these words and actions, shouted, "Are you referring to Courtney as a stray cat?" Enough is enough. Is this how a person in hospitality behaves? Spraying water on people? Hey, call the cops. I had a feeling it was going to turn into a big deal, or I couldn't stay there and get soaked any further. Enraged, I told him, "I want to change my clothes. Let's go," and dragged him back to the car. We came here excited about planning our wedding, but this turned out to be quite an ordeal. This hotel feels so different from when we visited on our date. It's almost like a different hotel altogether. No, the wet clothes I'm wearing are a clear proof of reality. I'm so glad I had a change of clothes in the car. After changing and feeling a bit refreshed, he asked me, "Courtney, what do you want to do? Do you still want to have our wedding at this hotel?" Honestly, I didn't really care at that point, but it's still a place of fond memories. I don't know. The hotel itself is lovely, but I'm not sure about the staff, I replied. But he just said, "I see. Let's think about it a bit." And that was the end of the conversation. Afterwards, we decided to at least pay our respects to both families, and it's been a whirlwind since then. Our parents asked about our plans for the wedding and reception. For now, we told them we'd like a small, intimate ceremony with only friends and family and asked them to hold off on the location. We've been visiting bridal fairs at other hotels, looking for a good place, but we haven't found one that feels just right. I was in a bit of a bind. Perhaps a wedding abroad would be an option. Just as I was flipping through a bridal magazine with these thoughts, my boyfriend called. "Courtney, we did it. We can get married at that hotel." "What? What do you mean?" "It was a bit of a struggle, but since it's my hotel now, you can plan the wedding any way you like." Can you believe it? He had been working on this all along. It turns out he's the son of a wealthy family and managed to get that hotel acquired by their chain of hotels. The old man said, "If I wanted to get married, I should become the hotel owner," he said, sounding quite pleased. I was too stunned to say anything in response to his surprising actions, but we decided to visit the hotel the following week. Finally, the day arrived. On the way there, my boyfriend said cheerfully that the hotel's reputation hasn't been great lately, and it's been affecting the business side of things. So, I'll work on making it a better hotel. "Okay," I said. He seemed to be having a lot of fun. The last time we visited, it was nerve-wracking because of how we were treated. But this time, the hotel staff were prim and proper, ready to welcome their new owner. Looking around, I noticed that the bellboy who once scoffed at us was now bowing deeply in welcome. If they could welcome us properly now, they should have done so from the beginning. Knowing about their previous terrible service, their current behavior seemed quite insincere. I felt like laughing at them now, but I had to keep my composure. Smug face, smug face. And then came the hotel manager. "Welcome, Mr. Owner." Not just the manager, but also the concierge and the rest of the staff greeted us respectfully. They didn't seem to realize that we were the poor people they had treated terribly before. It's shocking to see such a difference in treatment based upon appearance. The way they changed their attitude so quickly is honestly appalling. But it's a good lesson for me. And so, we were shown to the owner's suite. The manager was fawning over us. We've been eagerly awaiting the arrival of the new owner, and to think it's someone as young as you, it's truly impressive that you are the owner of this hotel at your age. Your wife is also quite beautiful, a truly stunning couple. Huh? Who is this guy? You called them stray cats, but now you're saying they're handsome and beautiful? Aren't those glasses missing lenses? And like the manager who doesn't remember customers' faces at all, that's wild. We decided to wait for a while since he said he'd create a space for us to greet the employees later. When the manager left us to prepare, I said, "What's up with that manager? He doesn't know anything about us. Handsome and beautiful. Seriously? It seems like he didn't notice at all. It's kind of impressive in that way, LOL. Well, he looks enthusiastic, so I guess it's fine if he does what he wants. Is it okay for that guy to be the manager?" "I know, don't worry. I've thought about it while having this conversation. It was time." He went to the hall where the employees were gathered. "I have become the owner of this hotel. I know you may be uneasy since I'm young, but the headquarters will manage the business firmly, so please rest assured. We plan to operate this hotel as a secluded hideaway, different from the luxury hotels in the city up until now. After repairing the aging parts, we will have a renewal opening. In conjunction with the reopening, I'm thinking of having my own wedding ceremony here to commemorate the start of the hotel and me." The unexpected, happy announcement stirred up the employees. Then he called me to introduce his fiancée, and I went up to the stage. When I got up there, the manager, standing proudly next to him, looked utterly surprised. "Owner, that person is... That's my fiancé." "Oh, it wasn't our first meeting, wasn't it? You didn't recognize me either, did you?" At his direction, I was dressed in a t-shirt, denim, and sneakers like the last time we visited the hotel. If I had worn a dress and heels, he wouldn't have noticed. But just by changing my clothes, he seemed to remember me right away. Seriously, this manager seems to judge people solely by their clothes. Looking around, the bell staff and front staff who laughed at us that day were staring at us with wide eyes. The concierge? Oh, he's looking pale and his eyes are darting around. It seems like he finally remembered us this time. My boyfriend, who confirmed the situation, continued talking to the employees who were clueless about what happened that day. "Actually, we visited this hotel the other day, and at that time we were both dressed like her. Now I got her approval for my proposal, so I was over the moon. When we came here thinking we wanted to have our wedding here, the bellboy, that's you, right? You ignored us without even saying welcome and laughed at us. The front desk staff were pointing and whispering about us. The concierge, you didn't listen or pay attention when we said we wanted to have our wedding here, and you told us poor people should go home. The worst was you, the manager. Actually, I recorded our conversation from the middle of it. I'll let everyone hear it." The recording of the exchange with the manager played. The employees started murmuring with disbelief on their faces. They called them poor people. "Isn't that terrible treatment?" they began to say. Well, the manager turned pale and trembled. After the audio ended, he began to speak. "As you can see, we were treated as poor because of our modest attire, and in the end, we were doused with water and driven out. This is unacceptable, isn't it?" There were nods of agreement from the crowd. Regardless of what we were wearing, I come from a family that owns a chain of hotels, and she is the daughter of a big pharmaceutical company's CEO. We are not poor. This time, we were advised by your manager here to become the owners if we wanted to have our wedding here. But what if we were other guests? This should never happen, right? This hotel, which is not particularly conveniently located, should offer the best service to all guests who take the trouble to come here. I want to return this hotel to the state it was once like. Let's make this the best hotel together." Applause filled the room afterwards. He demoted everyone from the manager and concierge to staff who had reports of poor work attitudes. The manager and concierge were asked to start from scratch, learning from the cleaning staff. In their place, staff who had been neglected despite their excellence, as well as part-timers, were promoted to better positions. He placed the right people in the right roles. creating a lively working environment. He actively listened to opinions, quickly implementing good ideas with a sense of urgency. Even as an onlooker, you could feel the overall atmosphere of the hotel improving, and he, thus, completely transformed the hotel. By the way, we were luckily able to have our wedding at the hotel as originally planned. Sure, it was also a slower period of time, so we kept them low-key a year later. He delegated hotel management to a newly appointed manager and resigned in haste. "Looks like it may work now," he said. No reason, other than maybe he just didn't have enough time to play his favorite video games. I did not just do a job of hotel management, it was my life. My name is Grace, and this hotel was my everything. That is until he opened the doors I funded in hopes to build his business. He was hard to miss, a young man in a money green suit, staring intently at an expensive phone, his attention fully occupied. He checked with a smile that could drop you as sprawling. "My name is Elizabeth," he said, his voice silky smooth. "Checking in for the next few nights. What Bollywood gossip is going on around here?" My lips wrinkled up in surprise, and a smile bloomed on my face. "City's full of surprises, huh, Elizabeth?" "Well, that depends on what you need." I returned his key. Our chat was brief, but it sparked something. Maybe it was his curiosity, or the way he seemed genuinely interested when I spoke. He didn't stay long, but when he checked out, he left a note. "Enjoyed our talk. Care to continue it over dinner?" I hesitated, not used to mixing work with my personal life, but something about him drew me in. We met at a local restaurant, a cozy place where the chatter and clinking glasses made it feel like a bubble away from the world. "You really have this place dialed in, don't you, Grace?" he said with a smile as we sat down. I laughed, feeling oddly at ease. "Guess you could say I've had some practice." Dinner flew by as we talked about everything and nothing. He was an open book, or so it seemed, sharing tales of his travels and investments. When the conversation turned to me, I found myself opening up more than I usually would. I told him about losing my parents, about how it was just Mia and me against the world since I was 21. "That's a heavy load to carry, Grace. You must be incredibly strong," he said, his eyes reflecting a mix of admiration and something else I couldn't quite place. I shrugged, brushing off the compliment. "We all play the hand we're dealt, right? Mia has been my priority. Our parents left us a little something, and I've been careful with it, made it grow bit by bit." He nodded, his expression thoughtful. "That's impressive. You've got a good head on your shoulders." As the night wore on, I realized I hadn't laughed this much in a long time. But when I tried to learn more about him, about his family, he'd skillfully changed the subject. "My folks and I don't see eye to eye. Let's just say they have their ideas about life, and I have mine," he said, a shadow crossing his face. I didn't press further. We all have our stories, our scars. As the evening drew to a close, I found myself not wanting it to end. There was something about Elizabeth, something that made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. My life with Elizabeth felt like a whirlwind. Each day was a new adventure, every moment spent together filled with laughter and dreams of the future. He had this way of making the ordinary seem extraordinary, turning simple dinners into unforgettable evenings. "Elizabeth, I still can't believe how fast everything is moving," I said to him one evening as we sat in our favorite little cafe, the one with the dim lights and cozy corners. He reached across the table, taking my hand in his. "Grace, when something feels right, why wait? I've never been sure of anything in my life," he replied. his eyes holding mine with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. I know, it's just, everything's happening so fast. It's a lot to take in, I confessed, feeling a whirlpool of emotion swirling inside me. He squeezed my hand gently. I get it, but trust me, Grace, I'm here for the long haul. I want to build a life with you, a future, and I want to start by making our wedding day the most memorable day of our lives. The way he spoke about our wedding with such passion and certainty made it hard not to get caught up in his vision. He painted a picture of a day so lavish and beautiful it took my breath away. Imagine it, Grace. A ceremony that no one will forget, a celebration of our love. It's going to be perfect, he said, his voice filled with excitement. And the honeymoon? You mentioned something about the most expensive hotel in the world, I asked, a mix of curiosity and apprehension in my voice. His smile widened. Yes, it's all part of the plan, but I need you to trust me, to take this leap with me. Your savings for the wedding, my funds for the honeymoon, and our future home together. We'll make this a reality. I hesitated. The practical part of me was screaming caution, but looking into his eyes full of love and promise, I found myself nodding. Okay, Elizabeth, let's do it. Let's make this wedding a day to remember. As the weeks flew by, the wedding preparations became all-consuming. Elizabeth was a man of action, taking care of every detail to ensure that our day would be nothing short of spectacular. As I watched him, so full of life and determination, I couldn't help but fall even deeper in love. Elizabeth, you're amazing. The way you're handling everything, I don't know how to thank you, I said one evening as we reviewed the list of guests and the lavish menu he'd planned. He pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me. Grace, seeing you happy is all the thanks I need. This wedding, it's just the beginning. Our life together is going to be even more beautiful. But amidst the world of excitement, there were moments when doubt crept in, whispering questions in the quiet of the night. Was I moving too fast? Was I getting swept away by the romance of it all? Every time those thoughts surfaced, Elizabeth's assurances were there to chase them away. His words, his promises, they were my anchor, holding me steady in the storm of uncertainty. The wedding prep had my days packed, but amidst the whirl of cake tastings and flower selections, I knew I needed Mia, my sister, my confidant, by my side. Since our parents passed, it had been us against the world, and her input meant everything to me, especially now. I called her up, hoping she could sneak away from the cafe she worked at. Hey, Mia, think you can ditch the aprons and coffee smells for some tulle and satin today? I half joked, my voice laced with hopeful anticipation. Mia's laughter came through the phone, light and familiar. For you, sis. I'll trade coffee stains for bridal trains any day. Give me an hour to wrap things up here and I'm all yours. The bridal shop was a wonderland of white and ivory dresses, cascading like waterfalls of lace and silk. As I tried on gowns, Mia's presence was a calming force in the storm of satin and sequins. That one, Grace. It's like it was made for you, Mia said, her eyes lighting up as I stepped out of the dressing room in a gown that felt just right. I studied my reflection, the dress hugging every curve and cascading to the floor in a sea of soft fabric. You think I feel, I don't know, like a real bride? I admitted, a smile creeping onto my lips. Mia's grin matched mine, but in a fleeting moment I caught a shadow pass over her face, quick and troubling. Before I could question it, she was up and pulling a dress off the rack. Mind if I give this one a whirl? Just for kicks, Mia said, holding up a stunning gown that caught the light with every movement. I laughed, the sound a mix of surprise and delight. Planning on eloping, are you? Or is there a mystery man you've been hiding from me? Mia's laugh, usually so carefree, held a note of something I couldn't quite place. Oh, Grace, you know me, always a bridesmaid, never a bride. But a girl can dream, can't she? She quipped, though her gaze darted away, hiding something. The day rolled on, a blend of laughter and whispers of silk, but Mia's mood seemed to flip like a switch, her usual bubbly demeanor clouded by moments of distraction. Everything okay, Mia? You seem a bit off today. I probed gently, concerned. She was quick to dismiss it with a wave of her hand, erasing my worries. It's nothing, really. Just cafe chaos. You know how it gets, Mia assured me, but her forced smile didn't quite reach her eyes. As we left the bridal shop, the weight of her secrets seemed to hang between us, an unspoken tension that neither of us could quite navigate. I wanted to believe it was just pre-wedding stress, maybe a spat with a troublesome customer, but the nagging in my gut told me it was something more. That night, as I lay in bed, the excitement of finding the perfect dress was overshadowed by the puzzle that was Mia's behavior. She was the one person who had always been an open book to me, yet now there were pages I couldn't read, words hidden just out of sight. As the wedding day edged closer, the joy I should have been feeling was tinged with a worry I couldn't shake. Mia and I had faced everything together, but now it felt like there was a growing gap, one filled with secrets and unasked questions. Little did I know, the answers to those questions were about to turn my world on its head. It was a day like any other, or so I thought, until Elizabeth left his phone buzzing and forgotten on the kitchen counter. As I went about tidying up the apartment, the constant notifications from his phone nagged at me, a persistent reminder of something amiss. The lack of a password was a surprise, but it was nothing compared to the shock that awaited me inside. The messages between Elizabeth and Mia were like a punch to the gut, each word a betrayal that tore through my heart. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning to push me aside like I was nothing, like all the years of sisterhood with Mia meant less than the dirt under their shoes. I read and reread Mia's message, confessing her pregnancy with Elizabeth's child. The words blurred as tears clouded my vision. Can't believe we pulled this off. She's such a fool, falling for every lie. And now, with the baby, we can finally be together just as we planned. The world around me seemed to spin, a carousel of deceit and treachery. Elizabeth's reply was no better. Declaring his love for Mia and his eagerness to see me humiliated, ousted from my own wedding. She's just a naive cash cow. Can't wait to get rid of her and start our real life together. This wedding will be perfect, thanks to her money, he wrote. I sat there, the phone heavy in my hand, a storm of emotions raging within me, betrayal, anger, disbelief. They all fought for dominance, but above all, a cold determination began to take root. They thought they could use me, discard me like an old toy. I'd show them the price of underestimating Grace Anderson. When Elizabeth returned, his carefree demeanor was like a slap in the face. "Hey, babe, did I miss any important calls?" he asked, casually picking up his phone. I forced a smile, my insides turning with anger. "Nope, just the usual stuff." "Busy day?" I replied, my voice steady, despite the turmoil within. He flashed that charming smile, the one I now knew was nothing but a mask. "As always, nothing's more important than coming back to you," he said, leaning in for a kiss. I had to force myself not to recoil. From that moment on, I played the part of the oblivious fiancé to perfection. I smiled, I nodded, I went along with the wedding plan. But behind the scenes, I was plotting my revenge on the two people who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Each passing day was a test of my will, a balancing act between the role I had to play and the fury that burned within. But I wouldn't let them see me break. I'd bide my time, and when the moment was right, they'd learn the true cost of their treachery. As I lay in bed each night, the image of Elizabeth and Mia's deceitful faces etched into my mind. I made a silent vow. They would pay for what they'd done, and their twisted game would be their undoing. I was no longer just the jilted fiancé. I was the architect of their downfall. My revenge would be meticulous, calculated, and oh so sweet. The days leading up to the wedding felt surreal. On the surface, everything was perfect. The flowers, the guest list, the dress. But beneath the facade of perfection was a storm brewing, a tempest of anger and betrayal that I held tightly within. Elizabeth was his usual self, all smiles and affection, blissfully unaware of the storm he was about to sail into. Grace, everything's coming together so beautifully. This wedding is going to be the talk of the town, he said one evening as we reviewed the final preparations. I nodded, my smile practiced and polished. Yes, it's going to be a day to remember, I replied, the words laced with a meaning he couldn't possibly grasp. Mia was harder to face. The sister I had loved and protected was now a stranger, her every word and gesture a reminder of her betrayal. Yet I kept my mask firmly in place, the mask of the loving sister blissfully ignorant of the knife she had planted in my back. Grace, you're handling everything so well. I don't know how you do it, Mia said one day as we finalized the seating arrangements. I looked at her, the sister I thought I knew, and was forced to laugh. Oh, Mia, you know me. I've always had a knack for organizing chaos, I said, the irony of the statement not lost on me. As the wedding day drew closer, the tension became almost tangible. A tightrope I walked with precision and care. Elizabeth's phone was now always guarded, his conversations hushed and hurried. But it didn't matter. I had seen enough and knew enough. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright, a beautiful day for a beautiful disaster. As I got ready, the reflection in the mirror showed a bride serene and poised. But behind the veil and the makeup was a woman on a mission, a woman who would no longer be a pawn in someone else's game. Mia's running late, huh? Elizabeth remarked casually, adjusting his tie. I met his gaze in the mirror, my eyes giving nothing away. Yes, but she'll be here. Wouldn't miss it for the world, I replied, the double meaning clear in my voice. He nodded, oblivious to the undercurrents. Well, she's always been a bit unpredictable, but today's about us, Grace, our new beginning. I turned to face him, my smile a masterpiece of composure. Yes, Elizabeth, a new beginning indeed, I said, my heart steeling itself for what was about to come. As I walked down the aisle, the eyes of friends and family on me, I knew that this was it. The calm before the storm was over, and the reckoning was about to begin. The vows were waiting, the guests were watching, and the stage was set. It was time for the truth to come crashing down and for the real show to begin. Standing next to Elizabeth in front of the priest, my heart was a mix of hope and trepidation. The words of the vows hovered in the air, a promise of forever that was about to be shattered in the most brutal way. The guests, unaware of the storm about to break, watched us with smiles and teary eyes. But then the unimaginable happened. Mia, dressed in a bridal gown that mirrored my own, stormed down the aisle. Her eyes locked on mine, not with sisterly love, but with a cold determination that chilled me to the bone. Move aside, Grace. I'm the one who deserves to be here. Elizabeth loves me, and this child I'm carrying is his, Mia declared, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. The room erupted into whispers and gasps. the guests turning to each other in confusion and disbelief. Elizabeth, rather than showing any sign of shock or remorse, let out a hearty laugh, his true colors shining through the polished facade. Well said, Mia. Grace, you've been a good host, but this is where your part ends. Why don't you join the audience? This is Mia's moment now, Elizabeth jeered, his words dripping with mockery and contempt. The audacity of their betrayal, so public and so cruel, sent a shockwave through the crowd. But as the reality of the situation sank in, my reaction surprised everyone, including myself. I looked at Elizabeth, then at Mia, and smiled. Of course, why not? I wouldn't want to miss the show. After all, I did pay for it, I said, my voice calm, betraying none of the turmoil inside me. Mia and Elizabeth exchanged a confused glance, clearly not expecting such a composed response. The guests, too, were baffled, their eyes darting between us, trying to make sense of the surreal scene unfolding before them. As I gracefully took a seat among the guests, my head held high, the whispers grew louder. What's she up to? Is she really going to let this happen? The questions buzzed around the room like a swarm of bees, but I remained serene, a statue amidst the chaos. Elizabeth and Mia, now standing together at the altar, looked unnerved. My calm demeanor had thrown them off. Their plan to humiliate and discard me was not unfolding as they had anticipated. What's your game, Grace? Why are you so calm? Elizabeth asked, his voice a mix of curiosity and concern. I met his gaze, my smile never wavering. No game, Elizabeth, just enjoying the fruits of my labor. Please proceed. I'm eager to see how this plays out, I replied, my words a velvet-covered dagger. The ceremony resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted. The guests watched in a mix of shock and anticipation, unsure whether they were witnessing a wedding or the prelude to a dramatic reckoning. As Mia and Elizabeth exchanged vows, the words felt hollow, a mockery of the sacred promise they were supposed to represent. And as I sat there, surrounded by friends and family who were struggling to comprehend the spectacle, I knew that this was just the beginning. The real show was yet to come, and Mia and Elizabeth, in their arrogance and deceit, had just secured front row seats to their own downfall. As the priest asked if anyone objected, the doors burst open. A woman, older and more worn than either Elizabeth, stormed in, her eyes blazing with fury. "Stop this wedding right now," she demanded, her voice slicing through the silence like a knife. Elizabeth's face turned ashen, his eyes wide with shock. "Catherine, what are you doing here?" he stammered, the mask of the perfect groom slipping away. Catherine, Elizabeth's legal wife, as I had discovered, marched up to the altar. "I'm here to stop you from making a bigger fool of yourself and these people. Grace, you deserve to know the truth," she said, turning to me with a sympathetic look. The guests murmured among themselves, the scandal unfolding before them more gripping than any soap opera. Mia clutched her stomach, her face a mask of shock and fear. "Catherine," she said, her voice breaking. "Elizabeth, is this true? Tell me she's lying." Elizabeth, now pale and defeated, had no words. His lies, his deceit, all laid bare for the world to see. But the final blow was yet to come. As the guests processed the revelations, Elizabeth's parents, two stern and imposing figures, entered the room. I had reached out to them, told them everything, and now they were here to confront the son who had brought shame to their name. Elizabeth's father, a man of few words, spoke with a voice that resonated with disappointment and anger. "Elizabeth, you are no son of mine. Your actions today and in the past have shown your true character. You are cut off from our family and our fortune. As the room settled into an uneasy silence, I looked at Elizabeth, Mia, and the shattered dreams they had tried to build on the foundation of deceit. The pain of betrayal still throbbed in my heart, but standing there amidst the ruins of what was meant to be my happiest day, I knew that this was not the end of my story. In the aftermath, I found myself in the cold halls of justice, seeking reparation for the damage Elizabeth had caused. The courtroom felt like another world, a place where the pain and humiliation I had endured were translated into legal jargon and paperwork. Elizabeth, you've not only broken a promise, but you've also shattered trust and exploited generosity. You owe me more than just an apology. You owe me compensation for turning my life upside down, I stated firmly, my voice echoing in the quiet courtroom. The judge's gavel sounded like thunder in the tense silence. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant is hereby ordered to pay $50,000 in damages for the distress and financial loss caused, he declared, his words a balm to my wounded spirit. As I walked out of the courtroom, the burden of the past months felt lighter. Justice had been served, but the road to healing was just beginning. Elizabeth's troubles didn't end with me. Catherine, his legal wife, fueled by hurt and fury, launched her own legal battle, demanding compensation for his infidelity and neglect of their child. The once suave and competent man was now entangled in a web of his own making, his lies and deceit finally catching up to him. Mia, my sister, the person I had trusted and loved more than anyone, found herself alone and abandoned. Elizabeth had fled the city, leaving her to face the consequences of their actions. She was pregnant and scared, a far cry from the carefree and happy girl she once was. Grace, I know I don't have the right to ask for your forgiveness, but I'm lost, and I don't know what to do, Mia pleaded one day, her eyes filled with tears. I looked at her, the sister I once would have done anything for. Mia, you were my family, my blood, but what you did, it's not something I can just forget or forgive. You choose your path, and now you have to walk it, just like I'm walking mine. The distance between us was more than just physical. It was a chasm filled with betrayal and hurt, too wide and too deep to ever bridge again. And although life traipsed ahead, the blemishes of those tempestuous months linger. I spent my time just trying to put back together the pieces of life I had, find peace in things. I was love and loss, the ache of the broken-hearted trust that had faltered. I lived through it. I combined elements too and realized that the most important journey was when I again looked within, as a voyage during self-healing reconstruction of my authority, plus knowledge of how to love, including strength.